Hello. Hello, friends. Hi. If you're new here, hi. If you don't know me, I'm Joette Calabrese, a homeopath for over 3 decades, and I'm here to be your teacher. And if you already know me, welcome, friends. Welcome, my mighties. I see you on this screen, and welcome, Facebook Livers on this screen. It's wonderful to see you. I love to see all my old friends. Hi from Pennsylvania, cold country. Ohio, that Venice, and hi from Grand Rapids, Michigan, and Topeka, and Missouri. And I don't even hear my music. Bum, 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 bum. North Carolina. It has started on Facebook Live. You bet. Hi, hi, hi. Nice to see everyone. I love to see my old friends. Thank you, everyone, for joining me on these Monday nights. If you love homeopathy, or even if you don't know much about homeopathy, but you love taking care of your family, you are in absolutely the right place. Every Monday night, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, when I go through my Materia Medica, and this is what it looks like, to teach you from it, as well as little tidbits that I love to share with you every week. And so tonight I've got it written here because I like to be able to read exactly what we put out there. And that was arthritis, joint pain, muscle and ligament pain, overused joints and muscles. Those who have some experience undoubtedly have employed the medicine I'm going to be teaching you tonight, but I have a few variations that will make it easier for you to remember this medicine. And for those who are not so familiar with treating joint pain, be sure to stay with me tonight and share and like, and please pass this information on to your friends and family and have them join us too. And you could watch this if you miss it tonight. You can watch it any old time in perpetuity. So by all means, let's get going. Let's stick together and let's learn how to use homeopathy for ourselves and our families. So if you already know anything about homeopathy, you may already know then that the medicine I'm probably going to be talking about, particularly because we're going through my Materia Medica and we're going somewhat in alphabetical order, we're going to be talking about rhus tox, rhus toxicodendron. And but it's known as rhus, R-H-U-S, and the second word is tox, abbreviated T-O-X. And it is one of the most important medicines that I can teach you. One of the most important medicines that you need to know, that you need to have in your kit. And I like to keep it in a 30th potency, a 200 potency, and yes, my friends, in a 1M. This does miracles in a 1M, rhus tox 1M. So let's start with this. Many people know, and I've taught it this way too, and I don't know whoever started this little idea that rhus tox is like a rusty gate. It's kind of neat because rhus and rusty are similar sounding words, but it's like a rusty gate so that when you first open the gate, it's rusty, going, and it's having a difficult time opening. But once it gets moving, it does pretty well. However, if you move it too much, it practically falls off its hinges. I like that little way of describing it, but I have another one that for me doesn't fit it quite as well because it doesn't talk about the how things get worse if they're walking or moving too much. But remember the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz, and when they first saw him, he said, "Oil can, the oil can." And Dorothy couldn't figure out what he was saying. Oil can, oil can. And they found the oil can. And so they put a little oil in his shoulder and then in his elbow and then his wrist and then his hips and his legs. And he started to move and he was all rusty and achy and stiff because he hadn't moved for a very long time. He got rusty from the bad weather. It had rained and he got stuck. Think of that. When you think of the need for a medicine, think of rhus tox. Because once they oiled him up and he was still creaky and cranky and he couldn't walk so well and he fell over because he didn't have the strength and he was still not 100% even though they had oiled him. But once he got moving and he got moving along a little bit better, that's when he started to be able to keep up and even dance down the yellow brick road. However, remember, they kept that oil can because every once in a while he would stiffen up again and they needed to use it again. Think of the oil can as rhus tox. Okay, I want you to remember that. Think of the oil can for the Tin Man as rhus tox. Now, he never complained because of his uplifting personality. He never complained about pain. But if there's pain associated with it, it's not just stiffness, but if it is stiffness, we certainly want to think of that. But if there is pain, it doesn't absolutely have to be with stiffness. It's just one of the few pictures that fit rhus tox. So I want you to remember that. Now, I'm going to read a little bit to you from, and I'll come back around to that again. I'll circle back round. I'm sorry. I just can't help myself sometimes, for those of you who know what I'm doing. Okay, so the hallmark of rhus tox is generalized body aches. One of its premier characteristics, I'm reading from my Materia Medica, is amelioration from movement, better from movement after limbering up. Just like working a rusty gate back and forth can help it opening up and moving, the joints can cause stiffness if they've been kept still for too long. There is discomfort and pain upon first movement, but as motion continues, so does improvement. So if you think in terms of the Tin Man, think that not that you got caught in the rain, but rather you slept all night and you were still. And you get up in the morning and you're, oh, wow, creaky, cracky, stiff, pain, joints. It doesn't have to be just joints either, folks. It could also be, I want you to remember this, it can also be muscles. It can be ligaments. It can be, every time I do this, it's because I don't wear face makeup except on these Monday nights. And as pure as the makeup is that I use, it makes my nose itch. I should just ditch it and forget it. It's not that important. But I'm sure that's what it is, because I can smell a little bit, even though it's essential oil fragrance, I can smell a little bit around my nose and it's making me itchy a little bit. So, all right. So there is that we can find that rustiness, that lack of movement in many of our lives. Sleeping, as I said, sitting in a car too long for a road trip, you get out and you're achy and your joints hurt. Now, if you're achy and your joints hurt after getting out of a car, and that's all it is, you get limbered up and that's the end of it and we're done, don't bother. It's just not that important. But if you are achy and feel rusty and stiff on getting out of the car and you're able to move along a little bit better, yet your joints are still painful, you still have more to go, in spite of the fact that you've limbered up somewhat, that is a call for rhus tox. Now, I wrote down some ideas that I want to remember to tell you about. And one of them is also, there is a sense of restlessness sometimes for people who need this. So it's going to bed and their feet are restless and they find themselves doing this business of rubbing their ankles together like a praying mantis. That's what I always think of when people describe that to me. And they're in bed and they just cannot get those feet to stop moving around. And there might also be a little bit of joint or ligament pain, and it just feels better to keep moving and to rub their feet together. That can also be a call for rhus toxicodendron. Another one, how about an accident? And having an accident where there is a jolt, a car accident is what I'm thinking of. It's I'm looking for, I think I talked about this in my book here. Let me see if I can find. Yeah, it's the reaction to having been jolted. So I'll explain why that works too. Even though we're talking about having been still for too long, we can also talk about rhus tox being useful for someone who's been jolted or has had an accident and they get a stiff neck, or they get a stiff neck that then causes a headache. If it's from the neck or the shoulders that have been stiffened from a jolt or an accident, and it may not show up for 2 or 3 days, maybe even a week later, torticollis, that is also a call for rhus tox, because at the first part of rhus tox, it's from overuse. But as time goes on in the person's day, sometimes they can overuse their bodies. And in overusing, standing at the sink too long, making Thanksgiving dinner starting at 7 in the morning and pulling it all together and making this big meal and being on your feet all day and overdoing it, overusing it, overuse, is often a need, a call for rhus tox. It's a beautiful thing. I'll give you potencies in a little while because I know you're going to want to know more about it. Let's see. Ditch the makeup, says Christy. Yeah, especially if it's making me, and it's really pure makeup. I've been, I wear their lipstick and I've been using it for years. I use Dr. Hauschka. I love it, but I don't know. It's making my face itch. I think I have to stop. You're absolutely right. All right. So what other time might there be in which you would feel achy? That is not from overuse. That is not from just getting up in the morning and aging or whatever. It's not from an accident where you've experienced torticollis or a stiff neck. There are other times. Anybody have any ideas what that would be? And let me know, and we'll follow through on that. But it's also from. It's better. There are certain things in which this we know that the body is better from this, and that's also another clue that rhus tox may be in order. A virus, says Katie. You're right. So from a cold or a flu, it can be achiness and stiffness. And as soon as you start feeling stiffness and achiness, we're not talking about bone breaking pain. Here, we're talking about just some stiffness and achiness, and I just feel like something's coming on. I feel all achy. Think about rhus tox. And in that case, there is a special potency for that I'd like to use. Influenza. Thank you, Leanne says. Yes, well, arthritis. Katie, you're absolutely right. I wasn't thinking of arthritis, but that is what we're talking about here. When we say joints that are inflamed, that joints that are inflamed is the definition of arthritis. Arthritis means inflammation of joints. So whether it's actually diagnosed as arthritis or it's just I feel joint pain and no one's ever diagnosed it, but that's where I feel the pain is in my joints, then we know that rhus tox is the medicine. No sound, says someone, but others are saying they have it. So it seems like we're all right. I think we are still all right. All right. Could this be used for fibromyalgia? You bet it can, because it's not just for joints. It's also for muscles, fibrous tissue, ligaments. So you do want to think about this. Absolutely. In fact, if someone has a fibromyalgia, I urge you to go on my blog. I've written about it because I have had fibromyalgia in the past. And I believe it was rhus tox it's been so long. I'm pretty sure it was rhus tox that I used. And Sjogren's achiness. Here's the thing. It could be any name with achiness. Now, it also is sometimes used for RA, rheumatoid arthritis, but it's more often used for osteoarthritis or just plain achiness. Yes. Whiplash. Thank you, Nancy. That's a good one too, because that's torticollis. So how else might you get whiplash or torticollis? Now, maybe not whiplash, but torticollis. And I've noticed that many people describe to me that they're on a long car trip. Their husband is driving. That it's hot outside. The air conditioning is blowing. And she lays her head back to the seat a little bit. And she wakes up an hour later. Now she's got torticollis. She feels achy. And it's right where the cold air was blowing too. So cold air is one of the worst things for someone who suffers from this kind of a condition. And so that's when we automatically think that if there is achiness, especially as a result of cold air blowing on someone or just experiencing cold air, just being in cold weather, cold, damp weather, this is the medicine we want to think of. But especially if we get into a position that's unnatural and now we've stressed the muscles, we've stressed the ligaments, this is a call for rhus tox. Every chiropractor needs to know about this medicine. Massaging is amazing for fibromyalgia along with rhus tox. Yes, well, here's something else that's very interesting about this is that the person who needs this really loves a hot bath or a hot shower, water running up against their neck or their shoulders or their elbows or their back or their knees, is for any part of the body in which this is happening. Just so you get that overall picture, okay? And cold. Now, I know chiropractors often warn people, don't put heat on it. They like people to use coldness on it. But we want to know, I'm not saying that you put heat on it all the time. What I'm suggesting is that you test it out. If you're better in the shower from hot water running on it, that is also an aspect, a characteristic to tell you, to direct you towards the use of this medicine, rhus tox. Because once you start using rhus tox, it's very likely you'll never need, not never, but you won't need to go any further. And it may come and go from time to time, but at least it won't be every day, all day. So my mother was very energetic. She passed away a year and a half ago, but she was a very energetic woman all her life. And this used to happen to her every once in a while, that she would come home. My parents would go to Florida for a few months in the winter, and they'd come back home, go north. And when she got home, all around the property were leaves and mud, and it needed to be cleaned up. And so my mother never called anyone in to help her. She just did it. She picked up the broom. She got a shovel. She got a spade. She started digging. She started sweeping. She cleaned, bending over, clean. Now, those of you who have taken courses from me may already know this story, because I have described it a number of times. And she at the end of it, my father kept saying, honey, you really need to come into the house. That's enough. You've been doing this for 10 hours. And she was, the last time this happened to her, she was in her 60s, and she overdid it. She got into the house, and when she sat down, it's like she was the Tin Man. It all stopped. She couldn't move, simply couldn't move. Every action, because she had overdone it, every single motion that she took, even just lifting her fingers, she couldn't even get her shoes off, was so painful for her that my father had to help her. She was able to get into the bathtub. All she could think of was, I got to get into the bathtub. She got in the bathtub. And of course, it was more comforting when she was in the hot water, but then she couldn't get out. Now, my mother was a very, what would I say, capable person physically. And she would normally have been able to get out of a bathtub, but she couldn't because the pain was so great. And in fact, she began to cry because the pain was so immense. And so my father called me on the phone. This was many years ago. I'm going to say 35 years ago. Called me on the phone. He said, Joette, do you have anything in your arsenal that would be useful to your mom? She's crying. And my parents had a kit because I insisted on it. And I told her, try rhus tox. They didn't have the 200, but I had given them rhus tox 1M. This is where it comes in, folks. This is the kind of picture that we're looking for. Really severe, really painful. Said, give her rhus tox 1M. One dose now, and then maybe in about another hour. And I don't really remember. It was a long time ago. Maybe an hour or so later, give her another dose. Well, I think it was a dose or two that did it. They called me back and said, oh my gosh, my father said, she's sound asleep. She was so restless and in such pain, but she's sound asleep. The next day, she reported to me that she slept very well that night. And that next morning, she was stiff, not as bad as she had been the night before. She was not in pain. She was not weeping from the pain. Now it was painful, but not as severe. So what did we do? We use another dose of the rhus tox. Do we go down in potency? Of course not. Why not? Why do we not go down? I will tell you why, in case you happen to know. Let's see. Can we give 1M for terrible knee pain for a few days? 92-year-old mother. So sounds like a good post-snow shoveling remedy. Yes, that's exactly what it is, Ashley. You're absolutely right. Why do we not go down? Why do we not choose a different potency? Because, let's see if anyone can come up with the answer for me. Let's see in Facebook Live if we've got some folks coming along here with some... Now, while we're waiting for it, there we go. Ashley Rose. Leanne, there you go. Ashley Rose says, and that's it, Rachna, because it was successful. Why would you change potencies, right? If you've given a medicine and it's acted, then we stay with that medicine. The same medicine, the same potency. Stick with what works, says Donna. Thank you. Keep what works, says Karen. Oh, you're all great. Because it acted, said Leanne. Yes. Tom says, 1M works so well. Because it was what works, says Marguerite. Because it's working, says Sean. Absolutely. You've got it. You have got it, my friends. You've got it. That's how we think this through. So the next step, next morning, I said, Mom, just take another dose. Okay, she took another dose. And by the end of that day, I don't think she needed to take another dose later in that day. But at the end of the day, she was back to herself in less than 24 hours. Tell me, anybody have any other medicine that could do that? Crickets. Crickets. There is no medicine that can do that for, I don't have a medicine here. Put them all away today. For $18 or $12 with no side effects that will not only take care of that event, but forthcoming events. There's nothing like that. I'm sorry. I know botanicals. I love them. I know a lot of other modalities. I'm sorry. It's only homeopathy. And the reason that I can say this so boldly, so confidently, is because I've done all the rest of them. Not just a little. I'm soon going to be 69. And I will tell you, we started my journey in homeopathy, in alternative medicine when I was 6 weeks old. And I've been through everything, you name it, conventional and vitamins and supplements, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I've done it all, and diet, most of it for long periods of time. This is the answer, folks. We are on the right track, and you're with me, and I love sharing this with you. And I would hope that you're going to share this with others. I want to talk about that too, but let me just get back. Let me make sure that I've covered all my notes. Worse from cold, wet weather. So what my mother did is she came from Florida and went back up to Buffalo, and it was cold and wet, yet she still worked. So she got double whammied. Now, it is made, rhus toxicodendron is made from poison ivy. Yes, folks, it's made from poison ivy. And most people think that if they get into poison ivy and they get blisters, etc., and itching and all of that, that they should use rhus tox. Not so fast. It doesn't mean we would never use it, but it's not the first medicine that we use. It's maybe the second or third or even the fourth choice, because this is not isopathy. This is homeopathy. Isopathy means you use exactly the same stuff that caused the condition for the condition. Homeopathy is homonym, similar pathology. Homeo, similar. Pathology, similar pathology. So it's similar. It's not necessarily exact. It doesn't mean we never go to it, that method, but I instead would choose to use rhus tox. Here we go with another 1M potency when I like to use 1M. If someone is exquisitely, and I mean exquisitely sensitive to poison ivy, the kind of person who just simply walks down the road. I had a client once who was like this. She would walk down the road and poison ivy would be in the pasture, 50 yards away. And if it was out and blossoming, she would start breaking out within a day or so. She would start getting, it's as though the spores or something were in the air. I'm sure they were. She was that sensitive. So instead of using it as needed as an SOS for the moment at that time, instead we use rhus tox 1M, 1 dose. This is a writer downer. 1 dose every 14 days leading up to the season. So if poison ivy is going to come out in your neck of the woods in May or June, now's the time to start. Maybe even a little earlier. Maybe you might have wanted to start maybe in February or March. Rhus tox 1M. That's how we do it. And then you do that every year. And each year it calms down a little more, and then a little more, and then a little more. So don't expect this to be bam and it's done. No, it could be bam and it's done for the acute by using something else at the time for rhus tox eruption at that moment as an SOS. But if you want to get to the underpinnings of the condition, the answer is go that route every year before the season commences. And it often, not always, I'm not going to tell you this is an absolute, but for many people, and I've worked with many folks, it calms it down each year. Each year it's a little less, next year a little less, and a little less, until finally, for many, it's gone. All right. Yeah, my sister came to me with poison oak. I suggested rhus tox, and in 30 minutes, it was 75% gone. Absolutely. And why poison oak? And why did poison ivy work for poison oak? In my estimation, the reason is because it's not exact. They're close. They're not exact. Same for poison oak. Yes. Anacardium 200 for the prophylactic of poison ivy. Yes, anacardium I don't use necessarily as a prophylactic. I like to use it for as needed as an SOS. It can be very valuable. I covered that in my course called Skin: The Ugly Truth. But I'm almost pretty certain that I've written about this on my blog. All right, let's see if we can get some more. One of them is the potency diluted. Let's see, what does this person say? It's flipping around. I get so many questions here. What about bad arthritis in back? If it's for joints, whether it's bad arthritis, whether it's the back or the elbows or the shoulders or the neck, rhus tox. And it's not the only one. I don't want you to get the impression that this is the only way to go, because I also like rhus tox. And I've written about this on my blog, and I urge you to go if you have need any more information on this, is to mix it with Symphytum, Symphytum. Go to my blog. It's all there. And I think it's called, I might just put Joette Calabrese-实Arthritis. Symphytum 200, and it's taken with rhus tox 30. And who do you suppose taught me that? For those of you who followed me, it was the Banerjees that taught me how to use it in that method. I'd known, of course, about using rhus tox. I knew about using it in a 1M. I knew about using it on a daily basis if need be, but it wasn't until I started to work with the Prasanta Banerjee Homeopathic Research Foundation that I learned their method, and it is a very good method. And so we use that then twice daily for a chronic condition of arthritis. Okay, rhus tox helped me so much several years ago. I thought I'd always need it, so I bought a whole lot of it. I rarely need it now. That's it. That's my point. Do you understand? That's the point. Because there is no other medicine that uproots the condition. That's the idea. Now, I'm not going to guarantee that every chronic condition is going to be uprooted by homeopathy. That just isn't so. It depends on what the condition is, how old the person is sometimes, how many drugs have been thrown at the condition, et cetera, et cetera. There are many factors involved. But in many cases, when, for example, with my mother, she was fine and she did not need that rhus tox again for, I don't even remember. We just didn't even think about it anymore. She just didn't have that problem any longer. Okay. You mentioned using rhus tox for physical therapy in a blog. Would you take it before PT or after, or both? Well, it depends on how severe it is. If we've got a PT, the pain is horrible during physical therapy, then by all means, take advantage of that, and it can be used prophylactically. But, and then afterwards, you might not need it at all, or it's needed, and then it's taken again. But don't overuse these medicines. That's something else I want to warn you about. Just because you know the medicine, just because you happen to have learned it, does not mean that you have to use it. I'm very conservative in how I use these medicines. I try very hard to stand back and let's just see how things go. Let's just see if maybe it's just that I've been eating too much chocolate or something. Okay, let's see what else we've got. Rhus tox work for pain from pulled muscle. It has a lot to do with pulled muscles. Absolutely. Can be. It's not the only one. So, if I were to open up a repertoire and show you the pulled muscle remedies and other arthritic remedies, there are many others. I'm teaching you what is the most obvious, what's the first line, because that's how I want you to learn this. If you have to think that, oh, well, if there are 50 remedies, how am I ever going to learn this? If that's the way I have to teach you, you will lose interest in this. But what's so lovely about this is I can tell you that in approximately 80 to 85% of the cases, as per the Prasanta Banerjee Homeopathic Research Foundation's clinical evidence, then we know that it can be used in most of the cases. 80 to 85% of those people who suffer from this condition are helped by using this medicine. That leaves 15% remaining. What do you think? 15%? That's not bad. We've got a secondary choice too, though. We've got other remedies that we can choose in addition. So it's not the only one. But 85% correction of a condition that's quite sobering, love it. I'm in. You're in with me. So folks who are not mighties, consider joining in. I don't know how long we will be able to do this. Yes, Allison says rhus tox and bryonia 30. Yes, that's another way to do this. There are many plantar fasciitis. Plantar fasciitis can sometimes often be aided with this medicine. Here's the thing. We can come up with many names for conditions. So instead of saying plantar fasciitis, arthritis, what was the other one? The tendinitis. If we keep saying we could come up with all of them, what we're talking about is an inflammation of the joints, the muscles, the tendons, the sinuous matter, etc. Especially if it's been overused or not used. It's one way or the other way, or both. So instead of wondering, could it be for this particular one? What about if I have arthritis in my toes? What if it's here? What if it's there? Instead of thinking of it that way, don't exclude yourself from the conversation. Just try it. Just try it and see how it goes. And then you'll know. And not only will you know for yourself and for the future, but you'll know for your loved ones, including your old dog, your old husband, etc. So we have to finish up here, folks. I can't wait to see you next week. Love doing this. Thank you for joining me. Thank you very much. Love you. God bless all of you. Mwah. Have a great week. See you next Monday. Bye.